Welcome back to The Ether, the show that disrupts the way you think about running your business. Join me, Brandon, and my co-host, Sean Delaney, the creator of What If, on today's episode. Our goal is to provide context around what we talk about so you have the clarity to cut through the noise and the confidence to grow and run a truly harmonious business. Let's jump in and take the next step to achieving business freedom. Business freedom. That's my favorite topic. I don't know about you.
Here we are. Hey, are we going to talk about the irony?
Go ahead. I'm going to let you do it because I own up to it. It's 100% my fault. So please tell the people.
I always triple check things because it's just in my nature to do this. And I triple checked with Brandon and said, remind me the topic for the ether. And he said, analysis. It's what we promised. I'm like, okay. I feel like we just did that. Although, that's probably just because we talk about these things all the time. And so I must just be thinking about some other place because Brandon would never mess that up. And so that's what I came here to talk about. And then Brandon said, whoopsie, change management. How ironic, because now we have to change what we were going to do. How do we manage it? I don't know. We suddenly have to shift, to pivot.
It's change management on the fly. So,
we're actually living it this very second.
We're doing it. Now, here's the fun part, though, because we are more than prepared because we talk about this with our clients all the time. We go over bad reviews. We know these 5 questions. I'm still going to read them because I have not memorized the 5 questions. Shame on me. But we talk about this stuff all the time. So it's easy peasy. So we're not changing for the sake of change. Let's just put that out there. But we do. So we were still going to follow a process. So yes, talking about change management, we call it modify because it's a much funner word and it fits in our acronym of harmonious. Further, faster, funner, Sean. Don't give me that crap.
Change management. I mean, all right. Let's give it a different name. Let's give it a different feel. What's the essence of it? Change management sounds to a lot of people like filling out forms for the sake of filling out forms. Did you fill out the change form and get all the project management stuff there on this change management? Because we want to manage it. And then we're going to go and make people adhere to whatever we're changing. So there's a goon squad at the end, and then there's a lot of forms at the beginning. That's what some people feel is change management. But that's not what it is. It's modifying things. It's saying change. The only thing that is going to happen, it's guaranteed, that things change. If nothing changed, time would stand still. So the world is going to change. And so we deal with it. It's kind of like when we talk about time management, we say you don't really manage time any more than somebody riding in a river manages the river. You're navigating it. You're allocating it. So with change, it is going to happen. Things are going to naturally change. Either sometimes a little bit or sometimes a lot bit. Sometimes you want them to change, and when doing change, the right time, the right place, the right focus, so that it is harmonious with everything else that you're doing.
I love it. Fun fact, time management, aka serenity, is next week. So next episode, we're talking about that. I love it. But yes, today we're on modify, and I don't know why, I feel like these episodes of the Ether always line up for some reason with like a current challenge or project with a client. So literally this morning before we recorded this, I was talking with one of our clients, and they were talking about this topic where in the past they've done strategic planning and they've done operation. They've executed, but only for a short amount of time before their squirrel brains kicked in and they start changing things. So started to unpack it a little bit. I'm like, well, what prompted you to change? And the real root of the response that they gave me was, we kind of just felt like it. And I was like, all right, that kind of makes sense why nothing's ever worked to this point, because we're not looking at data, which we talked about last week with metrics and analyze, and we're just changing for the sake of change. So we're not filling out paperwork, but we're also not changing just to change. There's a whole system here. But that's what I hear a lot from small business owners and entrepreneurs. It's the squirrel brain ADHD. It's just like, ooh, shiny object, let's change.
And the burnout that causes for your people, and then it makes them disengage because they say, Why do I care about following the process? You're going to change it in 2 weeks anyway. I'm just going to go back to doing it the way I used to do it, because that I know how to do that, and I'm comfortable doing it. I came up with that process that I used to do, so I'm just going to go back to that because I know best. And management saying, no, do it this way, now this way, now let's throw orange on top of it. Is it better with orange? No, let's make it green. If you're going to make me move this couch again, I'm not going to pick it up. You figure out where you want it first. Don't have me move it around the room 11 times like I'm playing some massive game of Tetris. We know it's not going to fit there. I know, so I'm not going to move it in the corner. Okay, how do we manage this change? Because it drives people nuts, and it's costly to be constantly adapting all the time, and it just really bogs you down. You're like, look at us, we're really nimble. Is that how you hide the fact that you're flighty and you change something every day? That's because that is not productive. So yes, that's worse. We get less people saying we've never changed anything and we're humming along. Help us to figure out how to change. Which is a valid question. Like, we don't know how to be innovative. Great. Innovation, that is great. But anyway, let's get into the questions, because I could just spin there forever. We all know this, but the most people come to us because they're changing too many things, and it's driving their people nuts. Yeah. They can't figure out why they can't get anywhere. You keep changing the path.
Do not change the path. All right, let's go through the 5 questions then. So first question under, again, modify. Let me toss this on the screen here. It's in the show notes down below too, wherever you're watching or listening. You want to take the bad. You want to answer these 5 questions for yourself. Rate your own company on it. Whatif.com. You can go ahead and do that. But first question is a statement. We have a method to assess and understand the need for and impact of change. So do we have that method to assess and understand the need and impact of change?
Yes. Do you have a process for it? And yes, we're asking the need for, because what do you mean need? That's the first chipping away that we're doing at those people that say, well, we change all the time. And why do you do that? Did you need to, or do you just do it? And then we can start to unpack that for them. So the need for and the impact of. The impact is even more important. And I used to do this presentation where I could show that, those the circle, the little swirl light bulbs that were supposed to save the world because they were going to reduce energy, show how it was like going to lead to the destruction of the entire planet eventually. And it was all these unintended downstream consequences, the butterfly effect. And it was shocking that you could draw that comparison and say, okay, that was a shocking example because it's so crazy. I'm only asking you don't have to take something to the 300th level of this extrapolation, but just if you're going to change this form, who else uses it? What do you mean, who else uses it? Well, is there another department that collects the same information? Yeah. Could we ask them if this is going to have some impact on them? I guess we could. They are in that other department, though. We don't like those people. Yes, I know. Let's all play together a little nicely. So you have to understand the impact of the change. And that's also the first chipping away of the impact of your continuous change. So when was the last time we changed something? Why did we change that? And what was the impact of that? Have we normalized that? Do we have enough data that says that we should change it again? This is the first hint at that. Great. Do you have a process for it?
Speaking of data and why are we changing? Question 2, do we have a process to perform root cause analysis? So I always think of this, or I always explain it to clients and people we're doing these bad reviews with, is that's like just putting band-aids on problems, which is what most people tend to do. Like, okay, I need more leads. Let me go pay Facebook to run an ad to get more leads. Like, but do you have a process to understand why you're not getting leads or where they're coming from in the first place? So explain to me what this question is all about.
So this is that kind of plan, do, check, act, root cause analysis. Like, why is there a problem? Are we just going to keep taking Tylenol? Are we going to understand why we keep getting these headaches? Because we want to address it once at the root. So Why are we always just standing around this copy machine? Well, because it's jammed again. It's always jammed. Okay, why is it jammed? Well, don't worry, I got it. I smack it on the side here, and then I yank the papers out, and then it gets going. And then I sort of spit on this little hinge here and spin it twice, and then the thing goes. We do this every time. We're really good at fixing the paper jam. But let's ask, why is it jammed? Well, the rollers are worn. Why are the rollers worn? Well, because it's been 4 months since we changed them. How often do we change them? I don't know. Whenever it gets jammed so long that we all complain about it. Okay, right? Who orders them? He looks around. Okay, that's the problem. Somebody doesn't own ordering these rollers on month 3 so that this doesn't happen. So let's get a process in place and fix that. Fix it there, not us all standing around waiting for Gary to get here and smack it and spit on it. The old smack and spit. All right. Anyway.
I am not going to follow that path. I'm just going to put that out there for you, the listener. Just know I was thinking it. You were thinking it.
We're all thinking it.
Question 3. All right. This one goes over a lot of people's heads. Do we understand and actively manage the diverse cost of change? What in the world is diverse cost of change?
Well, I mean, there's not just, so the costs are various and sundry. There are not just the money we spent on doing yet another project. There's the opportunity cost that we've lost in not pursuing something worthwhile. You know, a project that would have generated some money. There's the loss of the opportunity and power you could have gained from using that time and energy and focus on something that is going to directly change one of your KPIs. There is the cost to human will to keep up with you and follow anything. We talked about this at the beginning. Right? There is the loss that you can have of productivity if people are pulled onto too many projects. And so if you're even doing projects, I don't know how these changes are being.
Well, I'll give you a simple one too. Can we use ourselves as an example? So back when we were young, back in our startup days, we use, I'll just say it because I don't really care at this point. We use a software platform to host our websites and funnels, System.io, and it had this, I don't know why, but it had a flaw in it where you couldn't post the links to any funnel that went to System.io, including cover-up links. So like if whatif.com redirected to a System.io funnel or page, Facebook, all meta platforms would block it. So initially we said, okay, this is a relatively inexpensive platform. I think it costs us like $27 or $47 a month. We'll use it, we'll build it, it's efficient enough, and we'll put everything on here. And then that's how we'll get people to our events, our inner circle, our masterminds, all this fun stuff. We did not calculate the diverse cost of change from going from a real platform that would have allowed us to post links to this platform that saved us money. So we thought we are saving, I don't know what it was, $60 a month on this platform. We did not realize that was costing us potentially thousands, if not tens of thousands of dollars, because we couldn't put the links out. So lesson learned.
Lesson learned.
So there's a real life example.
And I love it when you talk tech. You know, it's like I understand what each of the words individually means, but just not when you put them together in that order. So I don't know what you're talking about. But yes, it was very frustrating for me on this side, smacking at keyboards, going, "Why doesn't anything work around here?"
Yeah, that was fun. Fun times. But hey,
that's what I'm talking about.
And we knew why, because then we calculated the diverse cost of change.
And that's what I'm talking about there.
I love it. All right, cool. Question 4. We are cruising through Modify. I love this. We effectively reduce the time needed to implement change. So that could be, some people could rate that as very high. They could say they get a 10 in that because back to the beginning, we just change every day. I change something every day. The time is lightning fast.
So good.
Talk to me about this. Where's the balance?
That's not effectively implementing anything because you haven't even let the dust settle. So there's that. That's why effective is in there. And it's and we're trying to be efficient with the change because We know if we have used the right data to trigger that, hey, we need to change something, and we've tied it to a KPI, and everybody involved understands what we're trying to get as a result. We have our project in place, and it fits in with all the other things that we have going on. Now that we've set it up that way, so we know that this is an important thing. We then therefore want whatever the result is that we're trying to get as fast as possible and as efficiently as possible. We know that we need to change this immediately without causing disruption. We've guessed as good as we can as to what the downstream impact might be. We're a go on this. You want to get there as fast as possible, and you want everybody rowing in the same direction. So that is a part of it as well, saying when we're talking about normalizing change, we're not just saying, here's a new process, everybody, and throw it out the door and just expect immediate compliance. Have we softened the ground a little for this change to come? Is everybody on board with it? And if we know that some people are not going to be on board with it, how are we managing that as well? How are we bringing them into the fold? How are we making sure that this new process is accepted by everybody so that we're all working harmoniously inside the system? So you need to calculate all that and manage that as well. It's the human dynamic as well as the process dynamic.
So speaking of humans, that's where we're going next with
question. Some of my favorite people are humans.
So this is, and you hinted at this in the beginning, where the ADHD squirrel mentality of change is what burns out most employees because they can't keep up and they don't want to keep up because they know everything's going to change. So question 5, do we communicate to employees and support them through the change process? There's the front side of this that we said before of just changing to change is going to burn them out. But then also the communication and support seem like really vital words in this question.
Yes. Are they there? Are they actively going to help make it work? Because you've seen people, or maybe you haven't, you've probably seen people where you try to change something on them and they're very upset. They had this process down, they were set in their ways, and now you're changing things, they don't like it, and they may not actively be throwing wrenches in things, but their crossed arms and one-word answers to things are not helping. You're not really rowing, Gary. You just you're doing the movement, but the oar's not actually hitting the water. I need you to row. How can I get you to row? And that then gets into inspiration and that kind of thing. But that human element there of, I do say support for a reason. It's because I don't want you just going through the motions. Can we get you there so that we're all on the same page with what needs to happen? You can see that the way that we're asking these questions, you tell me, Brandon, I mean, you get a lot of that resistance the bigger and long the company is and the longer it's been around, because you can have some people who've been working somewhere for 15 years and they dig their feet in. They're very hard to move, and that can destroy any kind of change initiative. But I don't know, if you have 3 people, I guess it's both easier to know who's gonna not be on board with things and get them to understand that they need to be, or I guess it could also be harder because one person could completely upset the entire apple cart. So you tell me, what's been your experience more with that? Which is more likely?
It's been more of a mindset thing from the whole organization. So, and I want to give you an example of a company actually my wife used to work for, because I see this more in like the small business and nimble type of operation. But to me, it's if you have an organization of people who are resistant to change, it doesn't matter what you do. They're resistant to change by nature. So you need to help them understand the why behind the change more so and see how it benefits them in the long term, rather than just saying, here, we're going to change.
Yeah.
But on the flip side, if you have an organization of people who love change and they're innovators and they're iterators, whatever you want to call them, then they'll just change for change's sake. And both are equally detrimental, which we've touched on. But I'll say this, when I work with our clients and I explain to them why we're doing things a certain way, how it impacts them, and then show them across the whole architecture, across all of Harmonious. What does this look like in different areas of your business, both the next couple days, weeks, months, and ultimately, how does that help you achieve your vision? It's digested a lot easier for them because then they can see, oh, okay, this is not just something that's thrown out there. It's not just a template in a box from some guru, which we are not. It is actually customized to my business and it makes complete sense with my direction. So that's kind of how I approach it. But I've seen all of them, and I've seen other people with the templates and the implementers and the whatever
Yeah.
out of the box methods, and they just want to slap on boxes to people.
Yeah. It's a problem. And if the process changes every time you touch it, you don't have a process.
No.
When my wife makes meatballs, there's a lot of art that goes into it. They're delicious every time, but they're not the same every time. And I say, how did these become different than those? I don't know. They come out differently because you're doing it differently. No, I have a process. No. But not one that matters. Not one that matters to the end result, right? Like just because you say, yes, in my process, I first get out this pot and then I get out the lid. But if you swap those pieces, it wouldn't change the outcome. I'm talking about the pieces where the outcome changes. That's where you need the process. It's just a little of this and a pinch of that. Okay, that's the art of cooking, but that's not. I guess is that the difference between cooking and baking? One is very scientific and the other one is
That's
like,
why I don't bake, because there's no room for error. But
really,
cooking, yeah, you can do that. That's my speed.
Yeah. So it's not the same. You don't have a process for it.
No, and in some places you don't need one, but in business you do.
Yes.
I'm not advocating for that, but yeah, don't you dare tell me how to cook. Okay.
No.
I'm Italian, just like your wife is, and we don't follow the recipes and instructions. I know what a pinch is versus a dash versus a smidge. Okay. Those are 3 different types of measurements. Please don't do that in your business.
Just don't. No.
All right, let me give you this example then, because it's very common that I have seen this. I've heard other people talk about that they do it this way. Again, it's that culture of innovation, culture of constantly adapting and iterating and improvement and efficiency. You already know where I'm going with this. So they had this process system. They called them playbooks. Love the term. Actually, as a matter of fact, I stole it from my last business. But they had these playbooks. They had a process for everything, like how to change the toilet paper in the bath. It's ridiculous. But they incentivized everyone to constantly look for the innovation and efficiency and to update those processes, but not necessarily document the change. So everybody throughout the organization was incentivized to update and find improvements to processes. And then it was expected that anyone else who had to use that process or get that outcome was to visit the playbooks every single time before they were about to do something. So no documentation, no socialization of change, nothing like that. It was just continuously update. And what ended up happening was, among other things, I want you to dissect what you're hearing here, but the one common thing was there were double, triple, quadruple, quintuple playbooks for the same process because people were just creating and innovating and not even realizing that this process has already been documented 4 other times.
Yeah.
What do you hear there? Do you have like hives on you at all?
Oh, it sounds like it's bedlam. It's bedlam. We have no purpose.
40 plus people in this company, not a small company.
We've so missed the point. We were shooting for the moon and we cruised right past Mars and didn't think to turn around. We are just so past the point. So how costly, how terrifying, how confusing. And yeah, I've even seen this at large businesses. We're public. We're not in the inner circle, so I don't want to say too much, but you would think that you would get this right at a Fortune 100 company, but I could see people. I came to fix the problem, and a whole bunch of people in the room following the process. Management just kept saying, yelling at them, follow the process. And one person's documentation was clean on the margins, and the other one had handwritten notes in it. But what was worse is that the handwritten notes had been photocopied, so I knew it wasn't their notes. So I'm like, why do yours have notes and yours don't? I don't know. Are you following those? Yes. And you're not clear. This is the problem. And it was just somebody had been saying, we should probably make some changes to this process. And then went, nah, that's not a good idea, and put them down. And someone came along and said, oh, well, we always update our processes when we photocopy this and put it in the system. And that's what they did. And then now half the unit had one process and half had the other. And management just kept screaming at them, follow the playbooks. Follow the playbooks. We are. We're trying. Follow it. Would you follow it? What is wrong with you people? I can't yell much louder than this. That was the. You come in and tell them to follow the process. I'll come in. Well, let me handle be responsible for what I'm going to say. But I'll come. It's clear as day. But this is exactly the kind of thing that can happen. Right? Anyway.
It's crazy. But that's why we're here. That's why we're spreading this knowledge. So
they were well-meaning. They were very well-meaning.
We'll give them that for sure. But it can, quickly falls apart if not managed correctly. So that's modify. That's change management. That's how you look at it versus maybe how you are looking at it. And next week, we already dropped the hint. We're talking about serenity, time management. I love this topic. So many people come to us and they're like, I just want more free time. I want freedom, business freedom. So I'll give you this in preparation for next week. If you go to whatif.com/clarity, we'll give you a head start on freedom, on serenity, and maybe you won't even need that episode. So just a little
very disruptive topic, time management. We have a very disruptive way of thinking about it and unpacking it. It is something that weaves through the fears of every entrepreneur, the 4 buckets of things that every entrepreneur needs to solve for. Time management is woven through it. It's a complicated answer, but we have a very uncomplicated solution. So I can't wait for that one.
We do. If you go to this link, it's in the show notes. If you're watching, I'm pointing, but if you're listening, it's in the show notes down below. Again, whatif.com/clarity. We'll get you 50% of your time back in 90 days. So again, I'm just going to put that out there. If you want it, you can have it. It's free. Otherwise, we'll see you next week. Hopefully, we'll see you either way.
See you next week for another slap in a